just mostly because it's different, and so that's, there's not a high school in Huntersville. It's complete.
I like Unity. It's kind of like a preacher school. Oh,
Hi.
How are you?
Steffi, how are you? Oh, wow, what you doing here? What you doing?
Child choice today. Somebody will be here for a good visit.
It's coming.
It's got to.
I see on Facebook, I see you and my kids all the time.
Oh man, they're a mess. They're a mess.
When you see your dad, you tell your mom.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. They're excited. Split emotions, right? I'm trying to see Gerald. Wish it was Granada, boy.
But please tell them I asked
Oh,
about that.
absolutely, yeah. And they do so LA.
Ladies, I picked up gum. What did you say?
I'll take
I would love
some.
some. A slice of
Just
slice.
Gonna sit down like
talking about that.
Show you how, at that time,
You're welcome.
not running me through the street, he was one of the.
winner
one of
grade.
the-
I tried to get a room at the Round.
We did too.
I didn't until Sunday and they were
They're
booked for my
full.
concert.
So
So
where'd
you
you end
went
up?
there,
Where'd you end
Hyatt
up?
Place. And I didn't know anywhere. I just searched for something that was no more than 3
Something
or 4
close,
miles away
yeah.
that wasn't ridiculous in price.
I went ahead and booked for some.
That's what I was going to do before I left. I thought, so I would rather be as close as that.
It's putting a charter.
So much
in
easier.
Huntersville too, but that was the city
But,
wants a charter.
That's it. It's around there.
I've never
Randy had
stayed
done
there.
this weekend.
Called Huntersville.
So you've already made reservations. I actually wondered if I tried to do that, will they be booked for next month?
Oh, right. Well, as of Sunday or Saturday, whenever
You
I
got a
tried to
room?
do it.
She's too scared to.
Cornelius is back
Where did you
straight
end
out.
up this time?
And Rita always tried to get the state.
And Davidson,
rate.
oh no, it was,
What is the state rate? I didn't know what it was.
Matthews back out too, oh, cause is that the one where they?
Do both at the same time.
Both
Been there for
guy
6 years.
From there who would
Worst case scenario, I show non-appointment letter.
Look, she don't know what to do.
Advisory board.
says I'm connected.
Thought I
What is that?
And I,
Disconnected.
my son, he
87.
was,
so much cheaper. I mean, it's all that
He
they're
went off
gonna
to college.
reimburse
He-
you,
yeah, he was-
whatever,
his ears-
where you stay,
looks so
that's all that
Polish.
they'll reimburse you.
Do I have something I should
wouldn't have it all.
I think if I got a
He
document.
was telling his stepson,
Should have a letter.
What do you say you should? Oh, okay.
he
I do.
said,
I've got my letter. I just keep it with me. I've never had to share
how
it.
much is that? Yep.
So
I ate
if
too
you
much
say on the
food.
sta- you give the state rate,
I ate a lot of
I
food.
just need to ask when I make the reservation.
I ate a lot of food.
If you do that, we're.
I ate too much food.
I'm already
State
tired
rate.
and you got
have it.
me, you want me to be awake at 9:30.
I know. That's right. Forgot about that.
And this time I thought about it, and then they said,
My
well,
eyes say he determines last time it'll be good.
State ID.
Fall asleep.
Yep.
we don't have a state.
There's no way to know.
Every one of these schools.
It's sometimes
Yeah.
kind of made.
Let's do it, guys. Let's go. We're 10 minutes behind.
Hey, members of the board, the applicant group appearing before you next represents Power Elite Male Academy. They propose to locate in Mecklenburg County with a projected enrollment of 220 students in grades K through 5 in year 1, 264 students in grades K through 6 in year 2, 308 students in grades K through 7 in year 3, 352 students in grades K through 8 in year 4, 374 students in grades K through 8 in year 5. At capacity, they will have 396 students in grades K through 8. An LEA impact statement has been provided for you. No due diligence has been requested for this applicant group. This applicant group has not made any special requests, but they are a repeat applicant that received a full interview last year. This applicant group is partnering with Torchlight Academy Schools LLC, and its application has been deemed complete.
Thank you for coming today. I'm going to introduce your board.
Good afternoon.
My name is Rochelle V. Gray. I have been teaching and volunteering my time in Charlotte for the past 8 years. This year I was awarded Teacher of the Year by CMS Gen 1 program. I, along with my board, are passionate and involved community members that are committed to opening a school in Charlotte. This is our board's second time presenting Power Elite Male Academy to the Charter School Board Advisory Board. Last year, we did make it to the final interview, and were seriously considered for an opening in 2020. We have since revised and stopped application to address the issues raised by the advisory board. Power Elite Male Academy is needed in this community, as evidenced by the low scores and high suspension rate among boys, specifically socioeconomically disadvantaged males, the overcrowding of schools, as mentioned in the LEA impact statement, the increasing amount of people moving to Charlotte every day, 70 people, and the surveys we collected in the matter of a few months ago. We are trying to slow the school to prison pipeline. We are aware of the issues related to the Three Rivers and Essie Kaiser Fox Charter School. Our understanding is that the management school is a vendor and can be replaced at our discretion. This management company provides capital that the state does not, and we believe is needed to open a charter school. Additionally, their knowledge and expertise accumulated over 20 years in industry has been helpful during our application process, and we have developed a sound working relationship with them. In our discussion with the management company in addition to my and our independent research, we determined that the accusation against the management company are at this moment substantiated, And if in fact a resolution deems the management company culpable for the accusations laid out by the SE board, we would then determine what the correct course of action would be to open our school in 2021. This is not an accelerated application, and we believe we have ample time to make this decision moving forward. Our board is comprised of a diverse group of professionals that has the ability to manage and oversee a successful charter school. If a decision falls outside of our expertise, we will consult with professionals of that field to make an informed and thoughtful decision. I am here today before you to ask for a full interview with our entire board to discuss the nuances of our application that we believe includes a solid educational plan and a sound budget with a significant surplus. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, here it is.
Okay, what clarification questions do we have? This performance committee, right?
Yes.
Yep. Yep. On the survey, I noticed it was like the survey on the other schools that you had. And you did not specifically ask for a male response
Yeah, there
on
was.
that. Was there?
Yes, there was. That was, and we actually created that ourselves, but yes, we did ask for a male response.
Okay.
It was just one question. But on that survey one, according to what we had, the data we had, there was only 59 responses, and of those 59 responses, only 59% had school-aged children. But it didn't break that down into how many were male versus female. And then I was confused with the question on the survey about an after-school program, because it seemed like parents were more interested in like the after-school program versus the charter school itself.
People were interested in both, but because we were proposing a male academy, we wanted to get their the society or the community's input, because we are looking at the after-school program as being male and female. So with the people that wanted to come to us, because it's an all-male, we wanted to know what their response would be if we did have young ladies come to the after-school program.
Okay, so I didn't see in that survey where that was, that it was specified that it would be a co-ed after school.
I understand. That was something that we talked about with our community meetings.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I am looking at the survey, page 125. And it says, do you feel there's a need for an all-male school in the area? But I
Yeah,
don't
that's
see
it.
where it says, do you have grade school children? And like what you said, it didn't separate if
Right.
they were male.
But it did ask a question,
Do you want an all-male school? Right,
Yes.
do you just want one? Right.
right. So the survey's not in depth.
Now, because I really would want to know if the parent that had grade school children that were answering the questions had male students.
Of the, we do have time to add to it, but as to the ones that said yes, they said yes because they have male students. And we went back and talked to the others and asked them why they said no, and it was because they had female students. But we reminded them that they do know males, and they have males in their families.
But do you have data that's more than the 59?
We do, yes, we do. We will add it to, we were looking for that to be presented with the full board.
There was only 35, it was 59%.
Well, I mean, total 59 individuals were surveyed,
Yeah, okay.
and 35 said they had grade school children, and as she's just explained, that's 35 that had males. But still, 35 is very low, and you're considering 220 all males in a 5-grade
County.
span.
And let me say this, if I may add, because we're learning, and that's why we took what you told us to heart. We're looking at how soon we can really roll out things. We didn't want to get community's hopes up as to, and then all of a sudden with Dean saying that we can't at this time. But we've been talking to people all over the community, and people want to see an all-male academy. We've been having community meetings, we've been going to places, supermarkets, talking to students and to parents.
So what are you,
boards. I'm sorry.
so on that point,
Yes.
what are you in these committee meetings telling these parents that this, how this school looks?
I'm sorry,
How are you explaining to these parents how this school will look?
how the school will look.
What's a day for my son in the academy?
Okay, so let me pull that up. We're gonna start with breakfast in the morning, because of course our students need to eat. And it might seem like it's a long day, but it's a day that's currently within the CMS schools at the elementary level. They're gonna come in for breakfast, then we're gonna have a total group meeting. Every day we're gonna have a group meeting as to a theme, because we're creating a family. And then the first block, they will have a leadership piece, every student. And then from then on, we're gonna be looking at different content areas, and we've also infused some electives. We will have gym every day, we'll have a foreign language every day, we'll have our contents every day, we'll have recess every day. But then there's some other days, some electives will be taught by teachers, for example, the leadership piece. That is almost like a content to us. It is very necessary, because as we create leaders, they will be responsible and want to do their work, want to do their homework, want to be the power elite that we're creating them to be. And then we will end our day at 3:30 with the after-school program.
So you're saying that other schools in Charlotte Mac start elementary school at 7 o'clock in the morning?
They start their breakfast program between 7 o'clock and 7:45. Myself, I attended magnet school. Our breakfast program starts at 7:30.
And what time do they get out?
We're at
3:35.
magnet. We don't even start our school day until 20 to 8 to 9.
20
And
to
our school
9.
gets out at 4:30. After the buses leave, about 4:45.
I'm gonna ask the kind of the same questions I'd asked earlier today. When you look at your daily, weekly schedule,
Yes.
it is absolutely the same, kindergarten through 8th grade. Do you think that needs to be that way?
I do, because I feel like students need to get used to a certain time in class, but because of, based on what they'll be taught will be different in terms of differentiation, in terms of whether it's centers, whether it's a warm-up, or guide instruction, or independent, a student choice, those things will be determined based on the age of the child and the grade of the child. But I believe that all those hours need to be the same across the board, yes.
Okay. You've got 6th, 7th, and 8th grade that has quite a bit of time called personal development, and that's to be prepared.
That is,
That's our
we
leadership.
determined that we want our,
And that's the leadership piece.
yes, we want our building leader and our teachers to have a say in what goes into the curriculum. Sometimes as teachers, we're just told what we need to do, and we see other things sometimes that our leaders have not foreseen. So we want the opportunity for our building leader to have that component created by him and his staff.
I will tell you, I'm really concerned about these high numbers, and it just seems extremely aggressive to me. Have you talked with? I know there's a private all-male school in Charlotte.
Nations Ford is, it's religion-based,
Uh-huh.
and it's no longer, right now they have about 10 males at 10.
That's what I mean. They
But again, because it's also a paid-for program, people have to pay to go there.
okay. They only have 10 students,
At this time, yes.
all male.
Yes.
Okay.
What is the biggest difference in the application from last time?
Our mission, our program, not trying to be the all to fit everyone, really asking our students what they wanted. And we really took to heart what you told us.
I don't remember what we told you. What did we tell you?
We looked
I'd have to
at-
go back and look at the minutes to see.
Well, thank you for
There's a
that.
lot of
I appreciate that.
application,
I
yeah.
appreciate that.
What, so tell me a little bit more about what was specifically the
We
feedback
looked at
that
our
we gave.
mission statement, we looked at our program, we looked at what was global. One of the young ladies asked us, what exactly would you be presenting for our boys? We looked at that, we wanted it to be astute and something that they would really be anxious and motivated to be a part of. And that was not something that you could do for just all people, that it was essentially something that our males needed. Those are the things you asked us to look at.
What
And
oth-
you also asked us to look at the number of students that we were proposing.
Yeah.
Because it did not, it would not afford us the monies we needed to make sure the school stood.
What other all-male schools have maybe you visited or looked at?
I have, there's a couple in South Carolina, and right now their data is amazing. There's a Keith Ridge School in North Carolina and South Carolina. Their suspicion rate in one quarter went from, not their suspicion rate, but their referrals, went from 50 to 6 in one quarter, based on just having all males in the program, similar that they performed with the leadership piece. And also I looked at another school in South Carolina that we went and visited, and their scores for school teachers, for males that were proficient in one quarter, they went from 40 Fs to 4.
Are those both charter schools in South Carolina?
Those are charters, they
Charter
have
schools.
charter, single gender programs in South
Okay.
Carolina. They have over 100 classrooms, single gender.
So did they use the, what was their education plan, their leadership plan that they used?
Similar, we will both be following something by a gentleman named Wes Hall out of Los Angeles. But again, we're making our own, we're looking at pieces that fit. So one of the things we did was a Leadership Academy, was a program called the Greatness Academy. And the Greatness Academy first is to dispel the youth among themselves and others of who the black male child is, the brown male child is, the male child is. And the big idea is that when students connect their future, their academic to their financial future, they understand why they attend school. So that was a big idea with them, and that's a big idea with us. It also brings about great self-motivation for them, and they listen differently to instruction as a result. And then we worked on, and we will be working on, because I also deal with meals outside, because I do a non-conventional sports program. I have chess and bowling and golf, and most of my kids are males. So what we work on is positive peer-to-peer interactions and competition. And it leads to students that push themselves harder, that really want to seek information without coercion. And that's what is worked off of with the South Carolina single gender schools.
So that was, I guess, part of my question. The mission statement says that you're trying to promote male responsibility.
Absolutely.
But in the application, I didn't see where that was fleshed out, as you just spoke it.
All right.
So thank you for that explanation.
And I would take that just a little further to the objectives of the school. It's not fleshed out in the objectives either. They're more compliance oriented.
But we will also be following for the global piece, North Carolina's scope and purpose to create globally competent students. So thank you for that.
Could you clarify for us active-based learning?
Yes. Some people give our kids a lot of worksheets, and our kids sit there And sometimes they participate and sometimes they don't. They don't get to move as much. That's why recess is still important to us, but we want our students to be able to investigate the world. Even in science in our schools now, we don't have hands-on activities anymore. We want students to be able to investigate the world beyond their environment. We have students that have never even seen Uptown Charlotte. They don't know what's around them. They have like blinders, like a horse does, and all they know is what's in front of them. So it doesn't give them any motivation to really do well in school. We want to expose them. We want them to be exposed to more framing significant problems. We want them to be able to solve things, solve their own issues. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I doing this? We want them to be able to solve classroom issues, their school, their community. We want them to be active. We want them to know what's going on with the world around them. If they are to be globally competent as CMS wants us to be, we can't be without knowing things outside of who we are. And right now, our males don't know. They are concerned only about a few things. But even with that, with the concern they have about money and clothes, we want to be able to take that as a launch and allow them to investigate the world and to know how they fit in. We want them to improve themselves. We want them to view themselves as major players. And right now, they sit back. They're passive. We don't want them to do that. We're losing our community as a result. And our females are doing well, but we need our males to do well. So we want them to participate actively as scholars. And that's what active-based is. Not just necessarily activity-based, which is something different, there are activities too. But again, we want to motivate the student to be a part of their education, to have choices, to make choices.
So it's more of a choice model?
It can be. Because based on where your levels are, there will be some things that you will be asked to do, right? Because we know there has to be a rudimentary, elementary piece, and then you will build, and there will be some things that you will be allowed to create to do. What are the significant problems in your house, your neighborhood, within yourself? What are the steps? How do you walk that out? We want you to meet with people to be able to have a leadership role in your own. We want you to have self-preservation. We want you to take a part versus people just being telling you what to do, which might not even be the right answer. That person knows, and a lot of times our males aren't asked.
Yeah. I mean, that's compelling, for sure. I think that I was kind of like more thinking about it on the instructional side. Because I'm kind of zeroed in on the part of the application. It says the instructional method of active-based learning is the critical component which has shown demonstrated success with educationally disadvantaged students at Torchlight Academy
So we will have to
and
teach
Success
our
Academies
teachers
in New York.
how to allow that to happen. How to be the guide and decide and allow that, because a lot of times we're thinking about the different elements of math and language arts, but we can use all of that. I can take data from their families, from their community, and still get a math program where students are creating, but it's active-based and it's relevant. And
So-
that's what we have to train our teachers to be able to do.
So could you clarify where your curriculum will be coming from?
Success Academy, and also, again, we'll be using the North Carolina core standards, but we will be using their names and we will be changing some of the programs around, problems based on what the students bring us.
What does Success Academy use for literacy?
They have strategies, 'cause we're gonna be using North Carolina's core standards, they have strategies.
So you don't have a specific curriculum that matches the standards?
No, because we're not looking at it from that standpoint, we're looking at strategies, we're not looking at their program per se.
But you,
Except for the training piece for the teachers.
but you've got kindergartners that come in, they don't know anything about reading. You need some kind of curriculum to teach them.
So again, we'll be looking and using North Carolina Course of Study for that.
Those are standards.
Yes,
That's content standards.
yes, I understand. But even when you look at the programs that North Carolina has, they still, if you go to the website, they still have a course of study that we follow, that teachers can follow. We still have scripts and different things that we use. So again, we want our students to be in line as close as possible, but again, the other things that will make the school what it is because we're allowing the student to have more of a reign of a choice.
So when you went to Torchlight, the school in Wake County, what did you see going on in the classroom that would be directly, supportive of the all-male academy?
I saw peer-to-peer, I saw leaders, I saw students that know where learning stops. I saw students that know where learning stops and are able to show other students where their learning stops.
What
I
does
saw
that mean?
respect, I saw confidence. I
What
saw
did- what did
students
you see
learning
with-
Arabic. I'm sorry.
What did you see with the teachers
With the teachers,
instructing
I
these
saw-
students?
Okay. I saw teachers being on the side, showing again, modeling, and then letting students be able, there were like 3 different levels. Whereas you might give a math problem to a student, and you might have to go step by step with the math problem. Or with another student, they were given the math problem, and you might have saw the student be able to go to a certain portion of the math problem all by themselves, while the teacher worked with a small group. And then I also saw another group that based on what they were taught, let's see, we want to be able to teach you systems so that you can go in and be able to do the math problem on your own, and I saw that also. So I saw differentiation in the classroom, and I saw the teacher doing what she needed to do, not necessarily treating everybody the same, like everybody has to learn this from this point.
Thank you. Here's the way I'm feeling about this. I mean, we did a full interview with them last year. They've applied again. I mean, I feel like we're asking interview questions now. So I'm in favor of just bringing them in and doing the full interview again, since we already brought them for a full interview once before. That would be my rationale for doing it. I have a lot of questions about this app.
Yeah, I mean,
About the app-
I
I
don't see
mean, and-
anything that's, I'm gonna pull my notes from last year, I guess, and just see, that's fine.
I mean, I would say with I appreciate the desire to explore, to try to serve
Male
a male population. I would say maybe that's my bias. I'm a male. I'm not trying to say anything, but I know particularly our boys of color are suffering in a lot of different ways, and I appreciate people who want to try to specifically serve that, and that makes this a little more unique. And again, they made it to a full interview before. I think if we were just like, if we had started down the conversation and just said, nope, it's like nothing has changed, goodbye. But I feel like we're kind of having the conversation, we might as well have it in a full interview.
Okay, and I'm gonna make a motion, I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion that we move you forward for a full interview.
I'll second.
Okay,
All right.
So discussion.
Any discussion?
If they move to, when they move to full interview, if they do they bring any other criteria, any other information?
No.
No.
No, they
Yeah,
don't get
so
to,
same thing we
yeah,
had.
same
Yeah.
application.
same application.
Just everybody gets a shot at it.
Yes, and that way our full board will be able to
Yeah,
use it.
the board of-
And so they wouldn't have an opportunity to,
Add more.
in writing, address and document questions that we have today.
I mean, they can always submit a response to the rubric. People do that. They can submit, they're welcome to submit whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, we're judging the application and the board.
In the board.
And that is what determines,
Right, okay.
or what should determine the core of how we vote. Obviously, people clarify all types of things in the conversation. But I think at the end of the day, we have to also feel feel 100% about an application. Again, I feel like generally when we've seen an applicant before, they've made it to the full interview. It's the same board. I'm inclined to, and again, I do, I do appreciate, I think charter schools have the flexibility to do stuff like single gender work, so. That's my
To me.
personal preference.
And that's where I'm at.
I'd say the same thing about a
As far
single gender female
Female.
girls academy. I would say the same thing. Just want to point that out.
I agree. I applaud y'all's efforts to address the school to prison pipeline. We have to figure that out. And when y'all do come back, I'd like to see more information about your board and hear more about how that board can be developed to support the school.
Okay, so properly moved and seconded. All in favor? All right, and so you want to make a motion for
I'll
the
make a
committee?
motion that we move, Power Elite to full interview next month.
I'll second it.
Is there properly moved and seconded? Any discussion?
Quick statement. Are you talking about the full board or just?
Yeah.
for
Full
the
board,
committee?
yep.
So thank you very much for your presentation. Obviously, there's a tremendous need in Charlotte-Mecklenburg for a school that can address the disparities that we're having with black males in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. My concern is based upon what my colleagues have raised, in my opinion, some very serious and legitimate questions about your curriculum and methodology to accomplish what you say it is that you want to do with this population in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. I just want to caution you as you come back. Hopefully you will be able to provide whatever supplemental information, data, clarification that you did not provide today, because I want to share with you while you're here, I will not hesitate to vote against you. Because what I'm not interested in is a charter school opening up in Charlotte-Mecklenburg and not being successful. My opinion, we do not have time to play with this population. We do not have time to experiment with this population. We need to make sure that we're putting you in the best position, that you're putting this charter school in the best position to be able to help those kids. And so hopefully I'll be able to hear some things on the next go around that will make me feel a little bit more comfortable. But my colleagues, and I'm going to support them in helping move you forward, but I will be listening and watching this process closely.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. All right, all in favor? All right, great. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Yeah, this is our last clarification interview, right? For the cycle, not just for the day, for the cycle. And I think it looks like we're gonna probably be able to do all of the full interviews next month and be done. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, whatever you want.
Yeah, it's not normally like this for your
We've got one more.
2 days. We can
We're on
probably
2
do
days.
everybody.
We really could get through them.
Mr. Walker, I would just like to remind you of the one special situation. that was-
Oh, yeah, that's
Yes.
right, there's that one.
For January. Thank you.
So we'll do one in January. Board members got a
Oh,
issue that
And they can't come till January.
man, I got all excited, I forgot about that.
But that's
Oh,
just
well.
one.
Just one. So we could be almost done in December.
do we want to have them just come anyways and just say, hey, it's not that important that you have this board member here? Or-
I think the board member was pretty essential. in the
Okay.
conversation.
Cool.
All right, Huntersville Charter High.
All right, board members, our final clarification for this application cycle is for Huntersville Charter High School, who proposes to locate in Mecklenburg County. Projected enrollment for year one is 210 students in grades 9 through 10. Year two, 310 students in grades 9 through 11. Year three, 410 students in grades 9 through 12. Year four, 420 students in grades 9 through 12. And year five, 405 students in grades 9 through 12. Do not have information related to their at-capacity number at this time. An LEA impact statement has been provided for this school. No due diligence has been requested, and the applicant group has not made any special requests. This is a repeat applicant who received a clarification interview last year. The applicant group has not partnered with an EMO or CMO or had any special assistance provided for completion of the application. The application has been deemed complete.
We deemed them incomplete last year, right?
Oh, that was.
Yeah, so we deemed them incomplete.
Yes, they,
So they came in
Came in.
and,
That was late.
Miss Nichols, who was the main writer, had gotten sick and didn't see the emails for some information, so she wasn't able to answer everything, and so it was deemed incomplete for that reason, so they.
but they gave us the 5-minute thing last time, but then we voted incomplete. So, yeah, so please come on up and you get your 5 minutes. And your application is complete, so we get to talk to you this year.
Really?
Very
We're
excited.
thankful for that.
Three of us.
Hope we can bring our entire group next month.
I'm Jennifer Nichols. We did apply last year. We're excited about building a charter trade high school. And as you see in the application, our focus is completely on trade, 22 credits to graduate. We're excited about the opportunity because we don't have an opportunity right now for a trade high school. And it would give everyone an opportunity to make choices that are different than the choices they have to make today until they get out of school. So this gives our young people a chance coming out of middle school to explore options in HVAC, electrical, plumbing, culinary, and other trades, data, IT. So we're excited to bring this to you and in hopes that we can move forward. We are sitting on 25 acres that we own, free and clear. We have a school already on the grounds for children with autism. It's a private independent. And our office is located in that building. We started that school in August. So we're right there, getting ready to do 15 acres of mass grading, but not today, and hope to begin building April 1.
Okay. We'll go on and move into the things. I felt like I like the idea of the trade school. Where we've seen some issues with it in the past has been implementation, but I think in what we've seen in the past that you having the land and the location, you know where the location is going to be. I remember, I think we all probably remember Entrepreneur High School. Well, the old folks on the board do. And, you know, where we had the issue where they had, you know, all these students, and then at the last minute they had to move to like a different part of the county, and they lost their students, and it was a mess. And I think we do have one right now that's in the RTO process right now, maybe, or just opened.
No, they just opened.
Apprentice opened.
Apprentice,
Isn't
it's
that Union County?
just opened.
That's right.
So, I mean, I think it's, you know, I love the idea of the trade school. And, you know, almost all of the questions that I have would be interview type questions, such as, you know, how you're going to balance trade with the career and college ready stuff that you're going to need to do. I think you're going to have to really defend a transportation plan because the transportation plan was pretty weak. But I did have one clarification question. You didn't have any Gaston or Iredell County students listed in the budget, but you talked about having students from Gaston and Iredell County. What's the, you know, are you expecting some, or was it just you're expecting from too many counties, so you didn't include that one, or
Yep.
how's that work?
Yeah, we didn't, because basically the 25-minute drive time from there would include some of Gaston, but not a large amount. It would include more of Iredell and North Mecklenburg and some of Cabarrus. So we weren't
I
sure
think you
where we
included
would.
in there Mecklenburg and Cabarrus.
Cabarrus.
I think that was it.
Cabarrus, there's been lots of conversations in Cabarrus about trade, so we felt like we would have a good marketing chance there.
With all the auto stuff in Cabarrus, Concord, I would say some demand there. Anybody have clarification questions?
Tell me about the Aspire, is the Aspire board and the school board the same, and who's Aspire and what's?
Aspire is a foundation. We started the foundation 2 years ago specifically to build these schools. We started the foundation with the idea that we needed to get outside of the core of Charlotte-Mecklenburg and get out beyond the 485 with multiple schools, not just a trade school, but with schools for children with, on the high end of autism spectrum, as well as children with learning differences. We just don't have enough of those schools. So we felt like if we put them on the same campus, they could share resources, it would make it more effective and efficient in terms of economics.
How many members are there on that board?
There's 5 of us.
And you're gonna run 2 schools and maybe more. So talk to me about capacity.
We will add board members. That's a great question. Our intention is to establish boards for each of the schools independently down the road. But to get them off the ground right and to make sure that the culture is right and to make sure that they're financially correct, we felt that we should maintain the smaller board. We will add people as needed for the expertise that's needed, but we felt like it would be better to stay at least for the first couple of years with the board that we have. And then we will add members from the community. Each of these schools has a different dynamic and will require different people from the community.
So in the school that you have on campus now, that's been for 1 year?
Oh, no, we just started it August 28th.
August 20th, okay. And one clarification, reading your mission statement, it talks about the certifications that students would get. They'll still get a 4-year high school degree, correct?
Yes, they will. It's just additional certification within that particular trade area. This is an immersive program. It's hands-on. We are going to have, one side of the building is all labs. The other side of the building is classrooms. When students are in the HVAC program, they're going to be in the lab for that class. So it's a very hands-on approach. We didn't have any desire to send students away from the campus to take to the college or career tech programs and then bank on or hope that they would have the programs that we wanted them to be in. And I don't think we can bank on that community college to have the right programs at the right times that students can go to. We want them on the campus learning, even an outdoor yard area where they can do the things that they would have to do out in the weather, even today. So we want to have control of that educational environment so students are right there immersed. We don't want to bank on sending them somewhere else.
Clarifying question, what's the connection, if there is one, formal or informal, with the city of Huntersville?
They like us. They are very excited about us. We are not a municipal school. I was going to say that right out there.
That's the
We're an
first thing I
Aspire
looked at when
school.
it said Huntersville Charter
That's
High.
why I was, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, you're,
Because it's sitting in Huntersville.
you're
and-
joking, but it's
Yeah,
very, very sensitive
it's not a
at
municipal
home.
school.
And so I think that it's important that you clarify that.
Yeah,
for
that's not a
those who are
municipal school,
listening.
thank you. They have wanted a trade school. There was a group working with CMS hoping to have a CMS trade school up there. They had worked for over 2 years sitting at the table together. They just didn't feel that was going to happen. We sat down with them and had a conversation, and they said, you know, is it something that would work on the same campus together with what you're doing? We got excited about it because this option isn't available to any student, let alone to a student that has a learning difference or a student that might be on the autism spectrum. It's not available to anyone. So it was exciting to us to bring it to our campus because we could make it available to everyone. Huntersville has had its own. Sarah, I should let you speak to this. Sarah McCauley, who has been mayor twice in Huntersville and been on the council board 7 times. Sarah, I think she might speak to this better. Huntersville has had its issues with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg School District, but we are not doing a municipal school. We have no intention of that. They're very aware of that, but they're very supportive of what we're trying to do. But I'm going to let Sarah address that.
Forward. You were asking?
She answered the question already.
She asked.
Well-
Well, thank you.
And you made the distinction and clarification between the municipal charter and what you're doing. I'm not sure exactly, is the school in Huntersville?
It's sitting in Huntersville.
Okay, so that's where obviously you're getting the name and your location. But let me just say this to you, I would hope that the city of Huntersville would embrace you and support the initiative because since my time around and being involved in the educational field, there's a huge void in our local community for these trades. And so for you to come along and then combine this with a high school curriculum, I wish that our public schools had done that. They didn't do it. There's still a need, and I'm hoping that you guys can be successful.
The mayor of Huntersville does support it with, a lot of it was included in the package. The commissioners support it, and there's some of our meetings, the town of Huntersville, Chamber of Commerce, Huntersville Chamber of Commerce supports it in business community.
One real quick comment, Mr. Chair. I just think that there's a tremendous amount of, I've reviewed the application and looked at the opportunities. I just think that it's wide open for this charter school to be successful as it relates to trades and industries. that are in the region that could benefit from the program, in addition to being financially supportive of the program, and hopefully they'll be able to leverage those to be successful, wildly successful, and to be able to expand the program.
Anybody want to make a motion? All right, we got a motion.
I move that we move Huntersville Charter High School to full interview.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. So for the policy committee, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Chair, on behalf of the policy committee, I move that we bring Huntersville Charter High School for a full interview.
All right.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion?
Third and
I
two.
just want to say one thing. I want to tell you, I'm glad that if this was not an accelerated application, because it's a good application, and I'm glad it wasn't. The other thing that, when you come, if you are coming forward, and I think you will, the 9, 10 years, you're starting in 9th grade. And sometimes the kids that will be coming are going to be far behind, 2 or 3 grade levels behind. I'm really going to be interested in interventions, what you're going to be doing there, because we still hold you accountable to the end of course and the state testing system. ACT, and all of that. So the intervention's going to be important to me.
All right. All in favor? All right. Look forward to seeing you in December.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
All right.
Chairman, quickly, before we move on, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Williams for taking over for
Yes.
Yes.
Dr. Allen. Done a great job, but I want to thank you very much for that.
She hasn't slept in a month, Dave.
Don't quit just because you've done this. I mean, you know, hard to keep people in that application.
I know. It's like Defense of the
That's the
Dark
job
Arts.
that keeps turning over.
It is, it's like.
Yeah, we need to find somebody so Keeler doesn't
I'm
leave.
glad you got that. Harry Potter.
So we've moved forward 4, right?
And we had 5 from last month.
So we have 9 altogether.
But one's not.
Oh,
We
one
have
will be
9
January, so there'll be
interviews?
8.
9 interviews
8
There'll
next
be 8
month.
interviews.
in December and then 1 in January.
Right. Did we move 5 from last time?
How many have we moved forward so far?
So you moved forward 5 in October and 4 today, so that's a total of 9.
And so we'll do 1 in January and 8 in December?
You really want to do that?
Well, we don't really have to. If we're gonna do it in January anyway, we could spread them out a little bit.
Let's do.
Just as long as we can still do a 1-day meeting in January, I think would be nice.
So what would be your preference for how many in December and how many in January?
Well, what else is on our agenda for December?
Yeah.
Renewal votes.
Renewal, yeah, your renewal vote, and, we'll continue to do the low performing presentations.
So we could do 4 and 4, like 4 on one day and 4 on the other day, so we're not like so heavy. I'd rather get them over with, guys.
So what about 6 in December, 3 in January? We can still do that.
We could still do
We can
that.
still do 1 day. in
Cause I think we're gonna have to have a 2-day meeting in December
Yeah.
either way,
Right.
so.
Gotta count on that.
So you could break
Yeah.
up the interviews, 3 and 3 maybe, and then get 3 knocked out.
Do 'em in the morning.
January.
Yeah, do the interviews in the morning.
Well, I mean,
So we'd have 3, 3, and 3,
Yeah.
basically each of the days.
I thought we were trying to get them all done though, so that we weren't, because we're like, the longer we prolong it, then
Yeah, we're trying.
We know we have to do 1 in January.
I mean, that's not
January is
January.
the earliest we'll ever have had it done.
no,
Ever.
I'm just saying
Ever.
what Alex said, you know, don't
Yeah.
drag this on over because.
Well,
then
what
we
if,
start-
I mean, I think January is it's still gonna be fresh.
Yeah.
I think you get a more thorough review and you don't have to get them all crammed.
I get them all
together.
confused sometimes.
Look at all ours confused.
Sound good? 3, 3, and 3? So December 3 and 3, and then January 3?
Make it happen.
Ready?
Yep.
Yep, okay. All right, Good afternoon. I'm going to present the charter school academic data review. So this will be a review of the academic data that came out this fall from Accountability. I'm going to give it a little bit more background than I might normally, just for the benefit of some of our new board members. If we are looking at charter school growth since 2011, this shows you where we are at. We are currently at 196 operating schools. Last year, we had 184, which is the data that I will be focusing on today. The numbers that you sometimes see in the the financial business numbers, which are looking at operating schools, doesn't always align with the numbers you'll see from Accountability. And that is because out of our operating schools, not every operating school has tested data. So from last year's academic data, we had 184 operating schools, but we had 2 schools that had no tested grades, and then we had 4 alternative model schools. I am not going to go into the alternative model data, but that is available on Accountability's website if you are curious. For student performance levels, we had a few changes this last testing cycle. So there were new end of grade mathematics tests that were administered in grades 3 to 8, and then new end of course tests that were administered in high school. The math tests that were the new ones that were administered last year moved to a new 4-level achievement scale. So you have level 5, 4, 3, and then not proficient. This upcoming school year, reading and science will now also use that 4-level achievement scale. So those are some changes you're seeing last year and this year. Looking at school performance grades. School performance grades are assigned using an 80% achievement and a 20% growth scale. They use 2 different indicators. So if it's an elementary and a middle school, they have a certain set of indicators, which are shown up there on the slide, and then high school uses a different set of indicators. This data all is used to determine what what school performance grade a school will receive between A and F. The total school performance score is converted to an 100-point scale, and then it's assigned the grade based on a 15-point scale from A to F, which you can also see up there. The school performance grades are used to identify schools that are CSI and TSI, which is required by ESSA. And then also, as required by state law, these grades are used to determine if a school is low performing. And when we're talking about charter schools, there's a low performing designation and a continually low performing designation, which I will speak about later in the presentation. Traditional schools also have low performing status, and then there's low performing districts, and recurring low performing schools is the phrase they use for those schools. So looking at the performance trends over the last 5 years, you can, in 2017, they discontinued using the A+ grade, so that's why those are blacked out. But what you're seeing from last year is an increase in the A schools, B schools a slight decrease, a fairly significant decrease in the C schools, and then a little bit of an increase in D schools, and about a 2% increase in the F schools. And when we're looking at the performance data, we're looking at 178 schools due to those other schools that were not in either weren't with tested grades or have alternative accountability models. If we look at just the A and B charter schools, you can see the A schools is the bottom line, and we definitely saw an increase in those over the last 2 years, although that also probably aligns with the fact that now there's no longer an A+ designation, so some of those schools would now be in the A designation, and the B schools have stayed relatively the same. These are your A and B charter schools from this previous year. When I looked at the data, I was a little curious about how long they had been operating. I think there's several, I don't know if you could say causation, but I think there's definitely several correlations you can make about the schools that are continually high performing. And 65% of these schools have been in operation for over 10 years.
You don't have that written anywhere, do you? The 65%?
No, I have that. It's just in my notes.
Okay.
It's 13 of the 20 schools.
Yeah.
But you can also, I have the first academic year up there.
65%.
C or better schools, from 2014 until 2017, we were seeing an increase, and then last year that dipped a bit. D and F schools, similar type of statistics. We saw a decrease over the last 4 years and then an uptick in 2018.
That's when the English language progress thing started being counted,
The English language progress? Yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
That could be one causation.
That what?
That's when the English language progress
Got
started.
added.
It got added into the.
These are the lowest performing schools from last year, and if we look at like how long they've been operating, 9 out of the 11 were opened in the previous 6 years.
Wow.
So 82% of those are, I would say, fairly new schools.
Which one of these are the ones that we approved?
When did we start approving?
2014. Just Ignite, right?
Ignite, Three Rivers.
Three Rivers, but that was.
We
a
didn't
secret.
approve Three Rivers.
That was an.
Well,
assumption.
No, that doesn't count. I'm not counting Three Rivers. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Essie
if
Mae and
these,
Upward.
so we approved, the schools.
That school was already
the schools
HCLA. Let's
that
call
this
it what
board
it was.
approved were opened in what year?
20.
14.
No, they would have opened in like 2016.
16?
I mean, the only one is Ignite.
There's 2 of them then.
No,
SE
in
May and
Uproar.
Uproar.
In Uproar. And SE May.
Yeah, Ignite,
SE May and Uproar.
yeah.
Where's Essie? Oh, there.
Now, grandfather, they're now an alternative school, right?
Correct.
Did they
Yeah.
officially go to
They
that?
are not.
They're not
Didn't
yet.
apply.
Not yet?
We've had conversations with them. Their new
They
director
still-
says that they want to become an alternative school. The board has not voted to do that yet. But we anticipate getting them in this year.
Their performance score is a 3. They should.
Do they understand the urgency of
Eric,
this?
is Carter G.
Does their
Woodson
board
school
understand?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I think their
What
new
was
director
the name
has articulated that very well.
We went to school.
How long have they been working on this? 3 years? I think.
We've tried for at
This
least
is the
2.
lowest performing.
2.
Going on to growth analysis, there's 3 tiers for that. So exceeded growth, met growth, or not met. The growth trends, this is actually opposite of what we were seeing in the the performance grades. For 4 years, we had a decline for growth, and then last year, an improvement. Looking at the low performing and continually low performing schools, to be low performing, you have a school performance grade of a D or an F, and then met or not met. And then to become continually low performing, you are low performing at least 2 of the 3 consecutive years.
Another oxymoron in there.
So sometimes when people are looking at the CLP and the LP list, I think people sometimes get confused because they see a list of, or a number for continually low performing and a number for low performing schools, and think that it's that total, like those are all separate schools. But because of the overlap, it doesn't actually mean that there's, in this example, that there's 80 schools that are low performing. So if we break down last year's data, we have out of the 38 CLP and the 42 low performing schools, that breaks down to 2 that were closed, 31 that are CLP, 5 that were CLP but not low performing. So hopefully they will next year be out of that CLP status, and then 9 that were low performing but not CLP. And that breaks down to a total of 45 operating schools.
Right.
Compared to the 80-something that keeps getting reported.
Right.
Yeah, because they just add 42 and 38 together and say there's 80.
Yeah, so why can't we just say
Math
42
is very hard.
LP/CLP?
And 5 of the
Well, I don't know
CLP
what they're
schools are
talking about.
renewal schools, which you will hear tomorrow.
Tomorrow, right?
Yes. If we look at the trends over the last 3 years, you can see low performing has basically gone up and down, or it went, it declined in 2017 and then went back up. And CLP, unfortunately, has been a steady incline.
Would that be because schools that had been LP became CLP?
That's possible.
How much do we think that it was, didn't the math change?
It did.
The math did change, and I haven't dug down into all of the schools' math data, but I know statewide the math scores didn't decrease.
I was gonna say, I think it was better.
I think that, yeah.
So I don't know.
I think it
they
was
went
more
up, too.
positive than negative.
Hoping it's the same for reading this year.
I know, yeah, for us, for sure.
Yeah. So the problem then was in the reading.
Well,
Well, we'll find out after this round.
Well, I mean, why we have this.
No,
No,
I,
not
I,
necessarily.
well, there's
No.
no retesting though.
That's
Not
true.
having
There was no
retesting.
retest.
And
No
if you
retesting in math and then the online test and reading.
If you compare the traditional school percentages, they're very similar. So the traditional schools, there are a total of 2,345 tested schools last year, and that the number of low performing works out to 20.8%. And then the number of what they call them recurring low performing schools was 18%.
Similar.
If we could just look at the total number of schools, this is the trend we see. Those
So
are
that's not
combining
good.
that low performing and continually low performing actual individual schools.
So that is the true number, right?
Yes,
So we have 13 more this year than last year.
yes. And that is my presentation.
Debbie Downer.
All right.
This was very nice, Ashley, thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we're at our Cyber Academy monthly update.
Actually, we have Charlotte Choice unless.
Oh, Charlotte Choice, that's correct.
I think the screen's gotten further away.
Can I ask a
Closer.
couple questions of the staff first? And Coop, you may know more than others. And I'm assuming when we get this pulled up, it'll have the grade sheets when it comes up. But when's this school up for renewal?
2 years.
2 years. And do we have one of the sheets that shows the last 5 years for them?
I believe I sent it to you guys via email.
Okay. We got a lot of documents over the time. I'm trying to keep them all straight.
And they have a lot of data on this, this presentation.
Okay.
It's on the third slide, I think, there.
It wasn't in
Last
there.
5 years.
I can pull one together for you.
It's on
They've
the
got,
slide.
they've
It's
got
okay.
tons of
I-
data.
I
on
think-
there.
Slide 3 here.
No, it's just really slow. Yeah.
think it's just been scheduled.
But we'll see them all, right?
Yeah, we're gonna see them all.
We just did one.
Ashley, just a point of clarification. How come Charlotte Choice today as the lone LP presentation? I forgot this from our agenda conversation.
Why did you choose this one?
Are we just seeing like small numbers of them over the next chunk of time? Yeah, okay.
And I've already visited the school.
Okay,
so I
great.
met with Mr. Davis and
Perfect.
That
That's
makes
good. That's
sense.
it. That's all.
That's good enough.
Yeah.
Ashley, when did you send this with something else? The data sheet?
Yeah, it's in the email, that
If you,
is titled CSAB Meeting Materials 11/12 to 11/13,
Okay, that's.
November 8th.
That's the email I'm in.
And then it's 60P _ Charlotte Choice.
it's not letting you open it?
I can resend it in just a second if you need to. I think I sent it with the meeting materials on Friday.
That's like the one question.
Enrollment from 270 to 110. You know what? It opens fine for me. Except-
I have to convert mine.
Let's see what's happening with these people.
Did you get it open, Janine?
Just had to answer that security alert.
Did it open for you as well? The dialogue box is open?
I only have one sheet. What happened to all my sheets? Heck. Go back. Oh, for goodness sake, Sherry.
Sorry, guys.
Where's the thing that says ask them?
I don't know if they have this. We could try, but I have no idea.
Change your name, this is interesting. Change your name, 'cause they got it there.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, we're ready to go. You guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right, super. My name is Jason Guffey, Vice Chair of the Board. With me today is Gregory Davis, Principal, of course representing Charlotte Choice. We are new to this. I'm new to the school. Started a new board was voted on and into position late January of last year. Some information about the school last year: demographics, ethnicity, African American population. population about 75%, and economically disadvantaged was 75%. This year that we're in now, we are up to 87%, and African American and 62% male. So our school is located on the east side of Charlotte, and we have found an excellent group of students to be able to work with this year. We are down to 51% economically disadvantaged. We had 94 students last year, and this year we're up to 113. School opened in 2014, and from 2014 to 2017, we had changed locations twice and attempted to acquire land and purchase the land, and then tried to do a construction project, build a new school there. Was stymied by DOT regulations and requirements for about 4 years. Those evaporated last year or the year before last. And so now we've been in all hands on deck moving forward with the construction of the new facility.
Were they trying to make you to put an intersection in 8 miles away?
Correct.
Yeah.
As well as
I remember
turn
those
lanes,
days.
and then needing to purchase so the DOT had never established the right of way, so the homeowners all own to the yellow line in the middle, and so they were asking the school to go back and first pay to resurvey all those properties, and then purchase the frontage from the middle of the road all the way back to 20 feet off the road. We didn't have eminent domain, and of course everyone needed $1 million for that 20-foot property. So
Thank goodness that law has been changed and fixed, because it was a mess. I know this is beyond your presentation, but I think a lot of people that hadn't built in the last 10 years didn't realize how difficult DOT was being to work with.
That's correct. And of course, once the law was passed, those necessities did not become necessities anymore.
Yeah, suddenly no need to turn lane, no nothing, yeah.
Go on about your business.
Yeah, when it was coming out of DOT's pot, it didn't need to be done anymore. Yeah.
So at the DOT meeting, I was there, and they said, we'll go away with all these turn lanes and decel lanes and such, but we will need you to establish the right of way. So you want me to negotiate on behalf of the DOT for this property? And they said, yes, please. I'd be glad to do so if you're going to reimburse. And I got that feeling everybody needs $1 million, and so they took that requirement away from us also. So they're very, very understanding folks. It was refreshing to work with such a great group of folks.
Where's the new school gonna be?
It's about a mile away from the current site. Right now, we're on Milton Road in the shopping center, and this is over on Robinson Church Road, and within Crow's Mile. And so that is part of the story here. In the next slide or so, you're going to see that the population of the school was really on an increase, anticipating the new school, the new facility, and then they got moved from Charlotte-Mecklenburg facility that they were in. They had 2 or 3 months to locate a new center. They're in a shopping center off of Milton Road at the time. The school had to go in and do several $100,000 worth of repairs. They had to use their surplus to do that. Even then, enrollment started to fall off. The shopping center itself wasn't very good, but it was what they could find. Since then, though, the new ownership is taking over the shopping center. We've been identified as one of the jewels in that center, and the new tenants. There are a lot of new tenants, a lot of new upgrades that are taking place in that center. There's a real effort to revitalize the east side. During that 14 and 17, there was a good board that was involved, an active board. We really stuck to the governance, had great leadership. Mr. Davis was with the school as a teacher, and then later on as an assistant principal. And dean. And then around August of 17 and through January of 19, August of 17, a new principal was brought into the school. This principal did away with all of essentially scrapped the policies, procedures, the programs, educational programs, all that whole foundation that had been built and had led up on that. On the next slide, you see again we started out as a low F, moved up to an F, moved up to a higher D, and up to where we were, and then of course this last year we fell. But that principal really caused a lot of turnover in the school. And so,
How's your fund balance?
fund balance.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, because I look and I see, you've gone from, your high water mark, and this is based off the 20-day ADM,
yes,
296 in 15-16 down to 94 in 18-19, which means there's a whole lot less money, and you're at 110 was this year's 19-20. So just, I just wanted to check financially, how's the school?
So we had a budget that was set up. We were expecting 225 little bodies to come through this school, and the clicker stopped at 110. Turns out that the person that was entering our information was not making a distinction between interested and enrolled. So we right away have worked to right-size the budget. Right now, we did a reduction in force for that person, as well as some others to help right-size.
It's a nice way to put it.
Volunteer basis. And then within the, we have on the agenda for December board meeting to make some other changes. We're right now showing 108 in deficit. However, 108,000 in deficit. However, we're going to be able to reduce that through these changes and modifications we're going to be making to the budget.
So how much money do you have in the bank?
I honestly don't know.
I mean,
That's one that I need to know.
Yeah.
I can say so where cash flow has been an issue. Our financing partners, our lending partners, American Charter Development has been able to step forward. We haven't had to rely on them so far this season. But we have, but last year when I came on board, when we had a brand new board there in January, it turns out we found out afterwards that the agenda for that night was, before it was to vote us on, was actually to surrender the charter with a $400,000 deficit on the budget. We took over, of course, gotten that cleared out, and so now we're in a lot better position, really. Have weeded out a lot of excess. We have some non-instructional changes that we'll be making here to help bring that down. But so far, we have been able to navigate the cash flow shortfalls that a lot of schools are finding themselves in during this season while the folks are going with doing. So essentially, that's to say that yes, we did have an enrollment decline. We did have principal turnover. Went through 2, as well as an interim principal during that 17 and 19 season. Walking the halls as a board member, as a father, I could tell it was just chaos when we got in there in February. There was not a disciplined program. When students would have infractions, they would just send them home, and it regretfully wasn't even reflected in our school appropriately, the issues that they were having. Since then, though, of course, we are breaking ground on the new facility. We have brought Mr. Davis back, who has put into place an incredible culture and bringing back that culture that was successful other years ago. We have an active, involved board, and as well as I mentioned, experienced administration. We had such high teacher turnover that last year there were 37 employees where it takes 9 to teach. I mean, it was just crazy. The fact that the students are there at all is remarkable. The fact that the students could take a test is remarkable. When we got involved in February, we found out that they weren't learning math. We brought in a math teacher in April, and he essentially had to start all the way back in August standards to try and catch them up and do what they could. Do you want to address the culture and teaching?
Before you do that, can we just address how you're breaking ground on a new facility with your budget situation? How are you making that happen?
So again, using American Charter Development, they have purchased the property. They purchased the property 5 years ago, and our lease is based on percentage of students, and so they're fronting all that money, and
And you just pay a lease payment back to them.
That's correct. That's correct.
Hi, hello, everybody. Good to see some of these faces with the names that I've seen just on the internet, but I'm glad I'm here.
Can
Well,
you speak into the microphone? So
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the other one.
Other one.
Yeah, the other one.
This one? Okay. So I was there, I came in 2015, the school. I taught 5th grade, I taught 1st grade, and I taught 3rd grade there. My approach is just a no-nonsense approach. I have a very strict classroom. I run a very strict classroom. I've been in education for over 30 years. When I came over here, they brought me over here, and they gave me a room that was in chaos when I got there. I mean, they had the same situation we had last year is when I got there this year. I mean, when I first got there. I mean, they had kids in corners, things like that, things that I don't believe in. You know, I have a high education. I believe that in my kids. But the one thing I don't do is, and I know a lot of this, and I was talking with Jason here even last week, and we talked about the East Side. And the East Side doesn't mean anything to me because I wasn't around here. So I kind of, when I got there, I always treat the kids, it doesn't matter what side they're from. So the first thing they noticed when I got there is my classroom management. The military, but you might as well be in that room and you could see the way I ran my room. My room was comfortable for the kids. It was ran exactly like it should be. These kids, because they warned me when I went in there. They said, you're not going to last. These kids are just going to run you out. But that didn't happen. Within 2 weeks, this class was running the way it was supposed to be. But since then, it's always been, I've had the parents, I've had teachers, I've had everybody just compliment me on the way they walk down the hall, the way they talk, the way I got all my parents involved. I never asked for anything from the school. It's because my parents brought me everything I needed in that classroom. I just had to reach out and touch them. So they did see all this in me, and I didn't last too long as teacher there because they wanted me as the dean because of what I was capable of doing. And I didn't do it, you know, just being mean. I did it in a loving way to show these kids, you know, that there's more out there. So when I became dean, I literally went into an office with 500 referrals in that office, which really didn't make any sense to me, a lot of those referrals. And they put these kids out of school, some of these referrals, for putting up a middle finger to a teacher or saying something to a teacher. And they actually suspended them back then. But I didn't see it in Power School. I didn't see anything when I went to police. So it took me a little while. We put in our behavior management plan. I sat down with the assistant principal, and together we came up with a plan. So by the end of that year, I had 125 referrals. And those referrals didn't necessarily mean they had to go out of school, because I don't believe in putting kids out of school, which will bring me up to where I'm at now. I believe keeping them in school. So I developed a plan with in-school suspension. And while they're in school suspension, we are learning, you know, how to do EOG. So if you look at where we were trending on the one slide as we kept going up until 2017, because these foundations were put into place. You know, that's the first thing a teacher can't teach, you know, if they don't have classroom management skills. It's the first thing I brought when I came back this year. And the reason why I left this year, I didn't leave on my own. I was asked to leave when the new management came in. She really just had her own set of ways. She wanted her own set of people in there. I was doing pretty much everything from technology to assistant principal. From dean, I went to assistant principal. I was doing everything. She didn't do much of anything, but she wanted her own people in there. So she paid them these high salaries. And eventually she said I had to go because we had 2 assistant principals, so she chose me to go. And she got rid of the other one. And this is where everything started to fall down. I was there in the beginning of 2017. So those foundations that we built up in that school up until 2017 were still there. We kept going up and up, as you can see on that slide right down. It wasn't until after, when she took over for that year, where everything started going. And till this day, right now, as principal of this school, I get the parents who are so happy we're back that they are re-enrolling their kids. I have 3 more coming this week, just because we met last week, where we had a big gala last week, you know, a big capital campaign we did last week. And they were so excited to see everybody back from the old school because they filled me in on everything, and I'm not gonna go through all that, but it was a lot. She really did a lot to destroy what we put in place, you know, all the foundation that we put in there. So my job, when I came in, they asked me to come back, and first I hesitated at first, I'll be honest with you. And I said that, but I knew I did love the school because I had the vision that they had. I came in 1 year after they did, so it took me a little while, and they convinced me. So what I did was I came in for the summer, and I worked for free. I came in and saw how they destroyed all their computers. Everything from technology was just destroyed in there. I'm very familiar with technology. I own a computer business and everything that I can do, so I can go back and rebuild everything in there. So I came in, and I said, I'm not gonna I don't need to get paid. I'll just come in there every single day on my own time and work with you. And so we had about 250 Chromebooks. I got, by piecing things together, because they just let the kids just destroy everything. By piecing everything together, I was down to about 100, which is okay for me for right now, because in my 3rd through 8th grade, I have one-to-one technology right now. My K-2, we share a whole Chromebook cart down there at the moment to do our benchmark assessments. So the first thing I did when I got there is teach everybody classroom management. We had a big professional development the first week. Orientation was all about classroom management. You can't teach a class if the kids are doing this and you're trying to teach or you aren't doing it right. Because that was the second part of my professor, is teaching the teachers how to do things. So we went through that development right there, Professor, and it still continues as I go along right now. We still touch upon little things that I might notice in there. But it's an amazing difference if you could go into there right now and see through these hallways of what these kids are doing, how they're walking, how they're talking, what they're doing in that classroom, how the teachers are interacting with those students. I had to make some changes when I went in there because I had a few that were not on board, by the way, with what we were doing and with these changes because they weren't used to policies. They were used to things from last year. So they didn't last, you know, but it's okay because the teachers that I have in place right now, they're committed and they're loving and they're willing to stay the entire year and continue to where we're going next year. I don't have one teacher right now that wouldn't leave.
Who was the principal before? Sorry to interrupt.
When I got there, it was somebody named Mr. Simmons.
So we had have Mr. Davis. Before him was a man by the name of Brisbane. He's the one who appeared with us last time we were here last spring. He was assistant principal, or dean. I guess he was dean, and he would remain from when the other principal, Miss Gregory, she resigned in October, and the dean, essentially Mr. Brisbane, he carried over until we got involved. Saw some strengths and weaknesses and brought in Mr. Simmons, who had worked with some charters in the past to help us get through the rest of the year, trying to establish some more policies and order in the school and help get us through into grades. And then Mr. Simmons graciously went back into retirement, and we were able to persuade Mr. Davis to come back and help us.
So are you saying this one principal created all this havoc between August and October?
That is correct. That is correct.
Well, it was it wasn't just, it was August, it was a full school year, yes?
Yeah, she went the full school year.
And then into an
And then October the next year.
That's right.
That's
And then
correct.
you started in
This August.
August.
Well, I came in September, but I worked through the whole summer up until September, you know, just coming in for free to do the things and
So-
check out the school.
Other than, you know, changing the culture and stuff like that, you know, what else is in your plan to try to get the grades up?
Professional development is what I'm doing every day. Try to get these teachers for the instruction, so we brought in iReady, we use that, benchmarks. Every single week we're in there as far as administration goes. I'm in there with the.
So our teacher orientation at the beginning of the year was a full week versus
Yes.
in the past they didn't have any. It was just start school and good luck to you.
Yeah, we did a whole, with everything from instruction of what I expect out of everybody. In our PLC meetings, we meet twice a week. The first one, we talk about the lesson plans of what's going to happen. The second, on Thursday, so it's Tuesday and Thursday. Thursday, we do data. We go over everything that your weekly assessments were or what the benchmarks are. So we look at those to do that. We work with the one-on-one with the kids, so we have pull-ins, we have push-outs that we do. We have, every class has one of those that's in there. Somebody goes in there from our special area teachers to in there. So everything that involves around instruction, and I go in with these teachers, and a lot of my kids, when we talk about these economically disadvantaged kids, most of these kids really just need somebody who cares in there. And you can teach anybody anything, and that's my philosophy. There's no reason why our school is a low-performing school. There isn't. Because if you look at the data over here, you can see that just doing these benchmarks that we did first by putting these things into place, we are coming up right now. Our second one is due on December the 3rd, but when we talk about in our PLC meetings on Thursday, we're using the data that these kids are doing, it's remarkable right now of what they are actually doing. I have a lot more green in here, and we're gonna pull those reds into the yellows and the yellows into the green. We're gonna keep going until we can do it, because our goal this year is to have everybody almost on grade level right there. So we definitely want, if you can see right there, and that's our current benchmark on the right side over there.
What are you using for benchmark?
We're using iReady station right now. I'm using the NCEOG release test as well as a comparison, so I can compare the we're working pretty good right now. We also have, my teachers are so involved right now with their kids that we do have an after-school tutoring session that we do. So right now, it's every day, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So we started in our 4th grade, but it was open to everybody to come in.
If you can get a C or exceed growth this year, you won't be continually low performing anymore.
Correct, that is my goal.
Okay.
And that is something that I can see happening this year, with the way we're going right now.
Okay. Just in terms of the enrollment, what's your target for next year?
With the new school, I'm looking about 300, anywhere from 350 for next year.
When will you start with
Won't be
your?
able to do that because,
Yeah, you can't grow that much.
they can only grow up to 10% of what your current enrollment is.
Correct. So we are going to hire the overhead we need for our growth cap, and then fill those seats and just have to run on local funds.
You're gonna
Are they
grow about
past?
20 students for next
20,
year.
I think go 20%, right?
Are they past what the? I mean, how many years out did they have it built out in their charter?
Around longer.
They've been around too
10.
long for that.
But how many years have you been in existence?
14.
They're
from
past
14.
their original charter.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes your growth a lot slower. You know what? I would say though, if you go and do well and get out of continuing low performing status, then that bumps you up to 30%, right? You can grow 30% if you're not continually low performing or low performing.
And you can, yeah, right.
If you're not low performing.
Right.
If you're low performing, it's no matter what
You're kept at the 20%.
You can enroll more, you're just not gonna get state funded.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I guess I hope nobody throws anything at me, but what I would really like is to see the school back in February with financial data. Just because of the how much of a decrease in enrollment there's been, and knowing that y'all have got a deficit of about 108 right now that you're working through, just to see an updated budget.
Sure.
And to see that, just to make sure that, everything's okay on the financial front.
Did you guys submit an audit on time?
It's in the auditor's hands.
With the
We've given
LGC?
all the information. They say that it'll be to the right folks at the right time.
But it hasn't been turned over.
So I don't know if it's with.
I don't know if it's been
It
officially.
may be at the
We've not been
LGC.
notified that it's been officially submitted. I don't
so
Uh-oh.
maybe behind.
Yeah, you may want to check on that, because that's, the audit's due.
Audits due, negative 12 days ago.
Yep.
I mean,
Unless
I
they could
think-
have requested an extension.
Yeah, find out about the status now.
But my information was that it was due, maybe that includes the extension at the end of November. So I'll follow up for sure, make sure we're still in good standing there.
So then that'll give us time to be able to look at the audit, make sure everything financially is gonna be okay. If that,
Wanna
I
make sure
mean,
you do
that's
that.
my preference. It's up to
Because
the chair, of
otherwise you'll
course.
get out of low performing status and then be in non-compliance for financial, so.
That's right.
Yeah.
One fire to the other.
I mean, we want you to succeed as much as anybody else, so.
Well, I think that's one of the neat things about the school is that the change has been so quick. It's such a drastic difference. Both the culture, walking the halls, to we had started our capital campaign this last week. We had our town councilman and the at-large and commissioner were there, and just again, they're excited to have us in the community. They see us as a positive in the community, and being able to help revitalize that side and serve these young men and women in the area. So, and then the area that we're moving to, although it's just a mile, 450 homes that sprung up around it since we first purchased the land. Feels like a lifetime ago. So we're within walking distance of two large neighborhoods. So. Correct.
Ashley, what was your impression on your visit?
Well, I was there for two purposes. I was doing a head count visit, and they kind of spoke to the confusion regarding enrollment. So that was a little chaotic, but it sounds like everything's been resolved now, and they've worked with with financial business services. In terms of curriculum and the academics, I definitely didn't see any major behavior issues. That was not a concern of mine. It's a small school, and most of the classes are pretty small. I would say that the biggest kind of advice that I gave to Mr. Davis was just continue to develop the teachers and the type of instructional strategies they're using with the students. But I think they definitely have potential to improve, because I didn't see, it wasn't chaotic at all. There weren't major behavior problems at all. So I think they have definitely a strong foundation if they can get the instruction a little bit more rigorous and the teachers, some of the teachers a bit stronger.
Thank
A little bit different than Miss Cooper's visit last
What's your, I mean, with so few kids, what's your cash flow situation like?
I don't know. Honestly, I haven't been able to get into that part of the numbers yet. Our business manager is top notch. She's the one that's been guiding us through this. Helped us reduce our deficit from 400 to 180 last season. And so all I know is that we haven't had to reach outside for a loan to be able to make our payroll.
Okay,
So
we don't have
of course, by
FBS here.
February, I'll be able to have that
They're coming tomorrow.
zeroed in better for you.
What?
They come tomorrow.
Yeah, we could ask FBS tomorrow too, just kind of like,
I just got an email.
that'd be a good thing to get a handle
I just got an
on.
email from FBS. Their audit has not been submitted to LG yet. And it also says they don't even entertain extensions until December 1st. So your audit has not been sent to LGC. You need to
Okay.
find out from your auditor where it is.
Absolutely.
All right, well, and getting those academics right will probably be the key to getting more kids.
Can I ask one quick question? I see the seventh grade reading, you've got 27% on grade level. What are you doing?
I'm sorry.
I see that the seventh grade reading, you've got 27% on grade level. So what are you doing for intervention?
So right now, we have a one-on-one right now that's going into the, we have one-on-one that we go into the classroom. We have our actual character education, which teaches our Unravel, which is our reading strategy skills.
Okay.
That everybody has to know. Everybody in every classroom uses this to do that with right there. we sit down with our teachers when we go there in our PLC meetings and align what they're learning with the standards right there for the EOG. And most of it is getting these kids with comprehension, which I noticed a lot of that. So we do a lot of reading and comprehension work with the kids. But we relate the ELA part of it to every subject that we teach.
Right.
So we cross with math, we cross it with science, we cross everything relates to that. And a lot of it is and even when I was younger, I found things that I liked to read. That's what we do with the kids right now. We find things that they like to read as well as some of the other stuff that they don't. We have to give them that stuff as well. That's what's helping us a lot right now.
Maybe touch on the science. But
Oh,
so
and-
on
I
that,
see the
so even
science.
with our difficulties that we had last year, you can see we had 70% level 3 and then 40 at level 4. So even with the math and the reading hits that they had, difficulties that they had, they were still able to score high in the science. And being a STEM school, that's something that's important to us. Of course, now we're adding in reading even with more focus and vigor to help bring those up.
And I've hired some of the best teachers that out there. You know, even our STEM, the one he does, he relates not only just to science, he relates it to math. He relates everything, and every kid that comes through there gets to see a little bit of every single subject in there. So, so I am gonna have any problem with science or EOG this year, or even math. So the math teacher knows. I mean, he's the one that came to me in the beginning of the year, and he recognizes that what they were learning was not aligned to the standards, you know, which we all sat down together and we got that around. We got it already. We're using that now, and that's really helping a lot of kids.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, thank you. Keep working your plan. All right, at this time, we're ready for the folks from Cyber Academy for their monthly report. Do we have a one-pager set of questions? Is that in the?
This is microphone.
It's on e-board, okay.
Yes, okay.
So we're good.
Just having trouble finding it. What's the title of that particular one?
It's just 3:30.
I think it says November summary or.
I don't see that.
Monthly update. Is that the right one, Ashley?
Oh, there it is.
Which document within that?
All right, I got it. All right.
That's the very bottom. This one? Which one is it?
I think
That's
it's
the
the monthly
last one.
update. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Good afternoon. Thank you again for giving us this opportunity to share some updates from North Carolina Cyber Academy. But just like to introduce some of the staff members that have attended through this wonderful weather that we're having. Certainly our chair, Mrs. Bridget Pfeiffer, is with us. Christina Robinson, Director of Operations, is with us this afternoon. Amina Blunt, Director of Academics. Mr. Bo Mullins, Executive Director of Human Resources, also the 2019 South Regional Principal of the Year. Love to say that because we're proud of Mr. Mullins. Today I have Mrs. Tanya Bass. She's our financial consultant, and you will see in your packet our CFO, Mr. Charles Baldwin, was hospitalized last month, and he's doing a speedy recovery. So we do have a financial consultant. Mrs. Tanya Bass is a retired financial officer for the Durham Public Schools, and so she was a chief auditor for the school system there, so she's working with us and certainly be available today to talk about financial or any financial questions that may come up. But I'm really excited about another person on staff that's with us today, Mr. Micah Copeland. He is our elementary principal of the year. And one of our revamping of our school is this is the first time that we have a dedicated grade band administrative team, elementary, middle, and high school. In previous years, we had a K-5 principal, K-8 principal, but that K-5 principal served in other roles as testing coordinator and the like. But this year, we are solely dedicating the principalship to a K-5 and 6-8 and 9-12 to really focus on teacher development and certainly student growth. And I just think it's so important because I get questions all the time about virtual school and what does that look like and what does an administrator do in the virtual school, especially an elementary principal dealing with 5 and 6-year-olds. And so I think it's really important if we can allow Mr. Copeland just to have just a few seconds to give a perspective from the elementary lands. He is one of the finalists for the Principal of the Year for Durham Public Schools. He served at Hope Valley Elementary and did a great job there, showing tremendous amount of growth, as well as Shepherd Middle School. So we wanted him to at least spend a few seconds to talk to this board about the things that we're doing at the elementary level at North Carolina Cyber Academy.
So I'm glad to be here, ladies and gentlemen, and excited to speak in front of you about our elementary program. One of the things that we've really done this year is to look at how we support our families. Our learning coaches, a lot of times they are our parents, are working one-on-one with their children. And so our teachers facilitate that. And one of the things we really looked at was, what does a day look like for our kids? How do we help our families structure their day? And the learning coaches structure their day so that their children can be successful. How do we talk with them about that and guide them and give them strategies with setting calendars and setting just routines that go through everything? And also our teachers are really recognizing the role and support. We have some great math teachers who are providing parent sessions. So along with the live lessons that are given to students, is they have opportunities for families to go through and to also learn about the math and to learn and how to coach and support their child as a learner. So that is some of the work that we're putting in. We really are focusing on the small group time and being able to be adaptive and responsive to the needs of our kids. And so it has been exciting to be part of a lot of changes and really looking and seeking out what we can do to make sure all of our children are successful. So.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland. And I also like to recognize another board member that just arrived, Mrs. Jill Hammergren. You all received the package of information. Certainly I am here to answer any questions, to provide any further updates. Certainly want to make the use of your time, and certainly I have the staff here with me to address and answer any questions that you may have in regards to our monthly update.
Mr. Curry, is it Dr. Curry? I'm sorry.
Mr. Curry.
Mr. Curry. We get notifications when the board's meeting, and this may not be a question appropriate for you to answer, but the majority of the notifications, I guess, agendas are for special called meetings. I know you can't tell me what they are, but I mean, just an observation. It seems odd that there's lots of meetings, special called meetings for the board.
Yes, absolutely, Ms. Reeves, and I'll be glad to share as much as I can. And you can see in your board packet the actual agenda and the minutes from the board meetings, both on October 24th and I believe October 30th. You will see, in addition to closed session, there's some board business. The board voted on an AIG plan, EC plan. They talked about some budget shifts. But in addition to that, the board is still in conversations, and this was shared with Mr. Machado as well with Pearson, our former EMO. In fact, the board is still in mediation with Pearson, and there were certainly even talks of perhaps other litigation with Pearson. So you can just imagine, it's not what the board wanted to discuss. We want to talk about teaching and learning and growth of our school, but these situations do require attorney-client privileges.
I appreciate your share.
No problem.
How do you take a field trip virtually?
That is a great question, and I'm going to bring Mr. Copeland back because he just finished a field trip.
So a couple weeks ago, we went to the zoo. And so how that works together is that it was the most stress-free field trip I've been on as a school administrator. It was because we met the families there. And so at the beginning, all the kids meet together. We did some activities together. And then they walked around and toured the zoo with their teachers and also with their families. And so some stayed together, some went in different places. Then we came back together again for lunch. And so it is something that we have. It was a great experience with our families. We have also later this week, we have face-to-face sessions where we're going to be meeting in, I think, 3 locations across the state to be able to get together with our grade level teams. So students from high school, middle school, and elementary school will all meet together, and we have activities planned for them to really tie into the social side of things. I know high schools, they are going to have a kind of breakout room session, and middle school has some activities, and we have a lot of games just to get kids working on academics and things that they can take home with them and to also do, but also activities to really allow them to be social and interact with each other and make new friends. And so that's something we are excited about later this week.
So, yeah, in addition to that, you talked about field trips. We had a trip to the state fair. Last year we had about 42 field trips, face-to-face events, because we do realize that students do like the virtual setting, but the social piece to any school and for any child is definitely vital. So we do not take that lightly. So we do provide those face-to-face interactions with our staff and our students.
Okay.
I'm looking at the travel, the amounts have been spent. I just am looking at, almost, it was over $450 to come to a charter school advisory board meeting for your board chair. I mean, that may,
So if I think we're talking about the October 12th expenses. That is actually a merger of the expenses. That is both the Charter School Advisory Board as well as lodging and the board meeting. So that is 2 or 3 different events together.
And let me just add real quick, since that's me.
you're right, I just was wondering about that.
For our board reimbursement, we have standard board mileage reimbursement. And obviously if, I live in Charlotte, so to drive down, drive back, it's just a matter of mileage calculation, reimbursement for mileage, and if I have to stay overnight, it's just the, whatever it is for the stay. That will be calculated. Like I said, that is actually multiple events, actually board, as well as the charter school advisor.
Well, if you want to save some money, I think it'd be okay every night if you wanted to call in.
At this point.
Actually, we do, with so many meetings that we've had to have, but sometimes there are need for face-to-face meetings, especially, it's difficult, controlling a meeting. Could you imagine Alex or, your board chair and being able to control the meeting, away from the meeting is different.
I have no illusion of control here.
I was
I just
gonna
want to
say,
be really
he doesn't control us.
It's more like managed chaos.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
what our
So it is different. We do both. We do virtual meetings a lot of times, as often as possible. We do call-ins, and we have board members from all over North Carolina, and so we.
I think for us to save the school money, you can probably call into this meeting, and if we anticipate based on the materials that we need you to be here, we could just say, hey.
I appreciate that. I think that's so we can do that with staff too, because as I said earlier, our CFO is hospitalized, but he's on the phone now, ready to answer questions. So thank you. That certainly will save the school money, and also thank you for that consideration. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Are there any other board members on this list?
Well, I have another question too. Yeah, there are other board members on the list? No.
On this expense report, no ma'am, that is the only board member.
What about, is the testing, you're paying contracted providers to go out and test students like at their house or whatever? Is that what that is?
So no, actually our staff is traveling, as Mr. Copeland alluded to, face-to-face events. Our staff, they're traveling across the state, engaging, proctoring, and administrating the testing. This is most of the pre-ACT that happened during this time. So our teachers
that's
are,
what that is?
Yes. Our teachers are going out in the hotels and driving their cars from Durham to Asheville to Asheville.
Okay, yeah. I'm just curious, like what that actually, because it's just a lot of testing, so it sounds like.
Oh, yes, a lot of testing. And if you look at our budget, that is our #1 expense outside of salaries is testing. It takes a lot and you're talking, lodging and meals and make up testing. So it's a couple of days that teachers are living in hotels, having to eat McDonald's or whatever to administer this required testing. And we do, and what's probably not listed is we have to rent those facilities, conference centers. If we're in Charlotte, we have to rent out like the Great Wolf Lodge, and so we have a place to test our kids. So that's not even listed here as expense.
Great Wolf Lodge.
Wow, I want to take my pre-SAT.
Hold on a second. I was gonna say, how do the kids concentrate at Great Wolf Lodge?
It's gotta be high dollar.
It's called engagement. It's engagement. It's engaging
Mr.
kids. 'Cause-
Curry, I volunteer to get
Yes.
on your testing roster to do testing for you.
So we
Wait,
do
let
have-
me like
have to
wait,
go
hold
for
on.
testing.
We need to get this clear for the. So you're renting the Great Wolf Lodge.
So just the conference center. So we look at conference
the
centers.
space center.
Just the conference centers. But I will say what families will do.
I just want you to clarify for the
Yeah,
record here.
yeah, for the record. Yes, it is just conference centers. And we work with Central Piedmont College in Charlotte to provide some locations. So we do work, and we are really conservative about locations. We use our office in Durham, so there's zero cost to us. But I will say to that level, we also make this an experience for families. So when families are driving from Elizabeth City to Charlotte, they somehow make that somewhat of a gathering for the family, that they'll go shopping and enjoy that. That's great for us because it's more than testing for that family. It's an event or an experience.
You don't have testing sites in the east?
Yes, we use Wilmington, I believe Jacksonville, and we're adding, is it Greenville? I think we have something in Greenville. 11 sites, yes.
Is there no way to partner with the community college
I was getting ready
system
to
and to
say.
just have and maybe pay contracted personnel to administer
And Elizabeth City
these
State.
assessments?
Yes, we do partner with some of the community colleges. Oh, I hear somebody. And so a lot of times what becomes issues, even partnering with other schools, is the scheduling of testing. They're usually testing at the same time we're testing. So we did put in a waiver for some flexibility. If we can test earlier, we can certainly use some even charter schools to allow for testing.
I bet you could shoot if you're gonna pay them. They'd probably be. Say you could use a
I'm
cafeteria.
sorry, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
but isn't this a virtual school?
Yes.
Yeah, the state won't let them test
You-
online though.
You can't do pre-ACT and et cetera.
You have to have a live body.
You have to have them,
Yes.
yes.
But most of the EOG now you can do online.
So, and I'll.
Yeah, you can do it
But
online, but you still gotta have that.
They
still have to be physically located.
there.
Right.
It's
You
so
can't, like, have
people
them
don't
test
have
online.
somebody else taking the test, I guess. I would think, you've got I feel like I'm bleeding into, my community college board meeting's not till Thursday and Friday. But you've got a community college either in the county or in the next county over, in every county
58
of
spots in North
58.
Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, I would think, and I'm just gonna tell you, these community colleges, they would probably be happy to help out. So, and I bet you they're a lot cheaper than Great Wolf Lodge.
Well, and that's the thing, we actually do use them,
Not that it's
because
all about
the Charlotte location, so when you said Great Wolf Lodge, it's just a conference center, I wanna make sure we're clarifying that. It is just a conference center, but we also have students that are in the, at the Levine location of CPCC in Charlotte. And so, just because we have a lot of students that come from that area. So we have students we have multiple sites in different areas, depending on what the need is. And so, we try to minimize the travel for the parents, because if not, they won't come to testing. And so we don't want them traveling over an hour if at all possible. And so we do partner with community colleges. Again, it becomes availability issues. But even then, there's still a cost that's located with that. And the reason that we would use something like Great Wolf Lodge, only because there's an existing partnership that we've just used them before. And so we do get a little bit of a lesser rate than we would have normally got. But we have 11 sites that we use all over. We do a lot of vetting to be able to find these locations and to be able to minimize the cost of this for our families and for the school. And so, but that is one of our largest costs, just because we do have to test on site. And so even when we looked into, I know the other virtual school may use a company that goes in and they actually bring in all devices and all, that was far above our cost to be able to do. So even still, we're still having to bring in staff, because you still have to have administrators, you still have to have proctors, you still have to have an actual physical location for students to actually take those tests.
Do
So
the
that's
students
why-
bring their own Chromebooks or laptops?
No, because.
So you have to have a set of devices that go with, or you're doing all yours paper still?
Yeah, so because
Oh,
that's why
horrible.
we look
That's
into
why.
being able
Yeah.
to bring in that company, because they bring in devices.
You know
but
the
it's just
state
cost
is
prohibitive.
working to eliminate paper testing.
We are, and we're working on that, so we're kind
kind of baby stepping our way into that. And so we have 3 tests that we have to do this year that we have to do online. So we're doing laptop carts to be able to do that and to be able to have those students test that. But again, that's for 3 tests that are separated. So for this first semester, we only have biology. And so that helps a little bit for us to get a test run in it. But that's us building up to that process. But it's one of those things that, yes, it's a cost that we're going to have to occur at some point, and we know that. So we're working towards it. It's just a very large cost to be able to do that, because you also have to think about infrastructure. And
Speaking of that, with your high school students, I know if our students take virtual through NCVPS, not charters necessarily, but like a regular high school student would, if they took a class through NCVPS that had an NCFE, do you guys do NCFEs for the social studies or other? Because we don't have to, you don't, okay.
Okay, a question, you've had 87 withdrawals, but it looks like you've had 88 that you've enrolled. Is that, I mean, that's what it's looking like. Is that comparative to last year?
As far as the enrollment,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm talking about the enrollment, current enrollment.
I'll have to go back to look at last year. I don't remember our enrollment for last year, but it's real typical that we see that number of withdrawals in the early stages, within the first 45 days of school.
What's the last, when do you stop admitting high school students for a semester? 10 days?
Afternoon. It varies per year. What we do is deferment of enrollment to second semester.
Right.
Since this is our second year on a block schedule, I believe, I can't remember the date, but it was early October for students who were not already in the enrollment process. So for students or families who had already submitted most of their documentation and there were a few things that were outstanding, we allowed them to push through. I think the cutoff was right before the end of the first quarter in an effort to make sure students had access to enough of the course in order to, do well the rest of the semester. The elementary and middle school cutoff date was a little further out because they're on a year-long schedule versus semester.
So are you finished with your enrollments for this year?
For first semester. And so what will happen, I believe the data that you've been provided, we have over 100 students who are interested in starting with us second semester. That's just K-12. And so our enrollment team is in the process of calling and confirming that they want to attend, that kind of thing. And at the end of this semester, of course, they will have to provide their end of semester grades from the current school. And you already know that's a transition. And so they won't be able to start till the second semester. So we're starting those calls now.
That's K-12.
Yeah.
K-12. So that's interesting because I would think that you would continuously enroll K-8.
Well, it helps keeps things a little bit in order. Once students hit, with a virtual world, if they don't get enough of the course, it's very hard to make sure that they're prepared. It's something that we could consider, but it's just something that we've always done in terms of, pausing enrollment to give us enough time to transition to the second semester.
Yeah, but with K-8, that's a continuous.
Yes and no. Some of our, and Ms. Blunt could back me up on this, but some of the middle school courses and some of the electives on the elementary are kind of like on a block schedule, so it doesn't it's not as linear as that.
Okay. The turnover rate is 8.8 also. Is that consistent with what was last year?
Yeah, the teacher turnover rate, we looked at sort of the state average as being a little over 12%, so it's certainly less than the state average. A lot of things contribute to that, certainly the change in itself. One of the things that we looked at was our in-office schedule, staff coming in office to Durham so we can really do some comprehensive, aggressive PD. We have folks who live in Asheville and driving 3 or 4 hours. It just was not conducive for them to travel to Durham 3 or 4 hours one way and back. So they did have to make some decisions about looking for location and job. So it was some changes in that, and of course, just the nature of the change in itself. But our turnover is consistent from the past years and certainly less than the state turnover.
In the state turnover.
Yes.
And
yes, ma'am.
what was the rate of the teachers that maybe didn't get contracts last year, or new hires this year?
I will probably bring my HR director. Of course, we don't offer contracts, but, so the question, let me just make sure I understand the question is the percentage or the number of teachers
That
this
came-
year? Sorry.
Right, that came back from
Okay.
retention.
The retention rate. Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I know what you were asking either.
That came to me. That was the easy word, retention.
Good afternoon. So, you know, we have about 113 teachers, and 21 of 110 to 113 teachers with the transition did not come back. 21. And then since the school year started, we've lost 11. 7 were from last year's staff. 4 were new hires that maybe stayed a month or so and left. But when the transition took place July 1, 21 of last year's staff did not come back, you know, just because of uncertainty and changes.
Changes.
Just the change. But when we started in August with offer letters, as Mr. Chris said, we give offer letters year to year. We've hired, we were fully staffed, and then we've hired, we replaced those 21 that didn't come back. And of all the ones that we've hired, we lost 7 additional staff members from last year and then 4 new hires.
And for the new hires from this year.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you think, is that just new to virtual education, or?
I think that, I think the majority of those that left were new to virtual, and so they didn't quite know how to work. And some of them were some of our EC teachers, and they felt like it just weren't what they thought it was gonna be, and working with kids face-to-face versus virtual, so
Right.
a couple of them left for that reason. Plus they wanted to be able to touch the kid.
Mm-hmm,
And
it's different.
sometimes virtual is different. I mean, we have field trips and we do everything we can, 40-some opportunities last year to actually touch the kid, but it's still different.
Thank you. My last thing is that when you, and I promise, the benchmark results,
Yes.
assessments on November the 12th,
Yes, ma'am.
will we get those in December?
We are excited, yes, and I was talking with my director of academics. We're using Mastery Connect, and so the principals received that information on Friday. They spent the long weekend aggregating that data, so they're going to be meeting with their staffs this week to talk about action planning. And so our goal is to have you and I know you guys are not keen on the PowerPoint, so we'll think of some kind of way to deliver next month the results from our benchmark assessment. Yes, ma'am, we're excited to share those
Plug a
information.
little chart into that one pager.
We're virtual. We will figure it out from a technology standpoint. Yes, ma'am. We can figure out a chart or a table. Yes.
All right, thank you. We're gonna call this meeting and get everybody, those of us that have to get on the road here. Thank you, and all of you folks out there in the audience. We don't have anything else for today, right?
Thank you
So,
and good
move
night.
to adjourn.
Very light day tomorrow.
Yeah, light day tomorrow. Take a nap tonight. Make sure to get a
I'm gonna go do that now.
drive safe. I gotta get on the road. It's no joke out there.
Cough drop there.
Cooper, have you ever left your computer?